Welcome in, everyone, to just our second edition of SEC Live. We come your way every Wednesday night. This is the intent every Wednesday night at 8 o'clock Eastern Time to talk what most people believe. And even though there are many times in which I have to break up the groupthink and I have to tell the truth and I have to lay down the law and give perspective and context, this is the one time I must agree, just like most people in college football believe, the best conference in college football. It's MarkRogersTV, the voice of college football. We ask that you please adhere to the scroll down below. Please like, share, and subscribe. The reason you like the videos is that way they get circulated on YouTube. YouTube likes the likes, and the algorithms get really happy when they get a lot of likes, and they churn out that traffic, and they get us into the those front pages and those suggested video lists for people across the world that love college football, and they need to know that we are here. So hit the like button. That benefits us greatly, so we appreciate that. Share the videos out on social media so tons of people don't know that we exist, that we are alive, that we're thriving here at MarkRogersTV, the voice of college football, and talking the game we love each and every day. So let them know we're here. Please share the videos on social media. Also, we would ask that you would subscribe. So that's to your benefit and ours. So when you subscribe, what you do is you hit the bell for the notifications. That way you know we're going live. So in addition to our SEC live show, we talk Florida State, Ohio State, and Miami. We've got exclusive team-specific live streams for those three teams in particular. Plus, we hope to be adding another team, a mystery team, here hopefully very soon, as well as we've got our call-in shows several times throughout the week. So hit the bell for the notifications. That way you know when we're going live. Talking SEC, and we can't do this in any way possible without talking about what happened Saturday night in Tuscaloosa. Butt kicking by Alabama in the second half. This was a game that lived up to all the hype and the expectations, certainly for the first half, when it was 24-20 and following a long Alabama field goal that was a very impressive, about a 15-second drive from Alabama's 25 or 30-yard line out to the 35 of Georgia. So Mac Jones tore up the Georgia defense there in the last 15 seconds, and there were some plays that should have been made by the Georgia secondary in regards to at least keeping the clock moving and getting people on the ground to stop that Alabama drive. When you give up a field goal drive of probably 45 yards, I haven't checked out the chart, but about 45 yards in 15 seconds, that should not happen. That gave Alabama a bit of a boost at halftime and closed up a 24-17 game and made it a 4-point game at halftime. And Georgia fans, you are used to the script. You understand the script. You've seen it play out before in much bigger games. 2017 National Championship game, Georgia led 13-0. Georgia also led that game, I believe, at one point 20-7. 13-point lead blown. Of course, Tua pulls it out to Devante Smith in overtime of the national championship game, 26-23. I believe the lead for Georgia in the 2018 SEC championship game was 28-14. 2-touchdown lead. In comes this time Jalen Hurts for the injured Tua Tagovailoa. And Georgia blows a 2-touchdown lead again. Alabama wins it. This time, Georgia didn't necessarily have a big lead, only 24-17 in the second quarter, but Alabama outscored Georgia from the time it was 24-17 dogs to a final of 41-24, 27. Am I doing my math correctly? 24 consecutive points by the Tide, 24 straight, in proving to be, at least at this juncture in the season, and it's difficult to really envision anything different, that Alabama is clearly the best team in the SEC and clearly one of the two best teams playing college football right now. I will take your comments and questions in the live chat. I will also be welcoming a number of our favorite guests to talk SEC football. We got Lon Phillips Sullivan coming up here very shortly to talk LSU football. We've got David Waters from Gators Breakdown on the Florida situation down there as the Gators try to get back on the field here soon. Kevin McGuffey from Last Word on College Football. Brent Beard from First Coast News and College Sports Today will be joining us. Brent makes his way all across the SEC to talk SEC football, and Jake Evans joins us from the Rebel Walk and the interesting storyline right there with Lane Kiffin and Ole Miss football as they drop to 1-3. But certainly, I think, believe that the Rebel fans are about as happy as a 1-3 fan base could be right now with Ole Miss football. Competitive last weekend against Arkansas. That would be something that would have been a surprising statement to make during the offseason leading into this season, that Ole Miss fans would be okay, possibly be okay with a loss against Arkansas. I don't think Rebel fans are okay with it, especially with the 7 turnovers and that the game could have been won, but it's not necessarily as embarrassing as it would have been losing to the likes of the Hogs. In addition to this live stream we present each and every Wednesday night, there's certainly a ton of SEC content we send your way. We talked to Nick Walters this week from Pig Trail Nation. Check out that video. That was a good time. That was a tremendous conversation with Nick Walters talking Arkansas football, and we could do so with a bit of a laugh and a chuckle and some optimism for the first time in forever in Fayetteville as Arkansas looks to go to 3-2 with their next outing. And also we've posted a number of other videos talking Alabama, Georgia, and so forth. Oh, yeah, we got some favorites in the live chat. Alan V. Troll Patrol first. I believe so, Alan. Tell it like it is, Mark. Woo! There it is from Alan. We got a hi from Tanya. I'm not first, but did you discuss that LSU situation yet? We have not. We are awaiting our LSU guy, Lon Philip Sullivan from LSU Odyssey. I was not able to address this yet. I was seeing comments made in the previous live chat, so we were live with Florida State Football Talk from about 6:15 to 7:15, and so I have not had any time to address what could be sanctions against LSU that are connected to Odell Beckham Jr. Interesting. Not surprising, just interesting. Bo Weevil, good to see you talking Clemson football. Bo, good to see you. All right. Alabama better than Georgia by a bunch. My thoughts about that. I don't necessarily think that the gap between the two teams is that substantial. Not as substantial as the final score. The gap between the two quarterbacks, that could be substantial. And I don't know the last time I really laid a loss at the feet of one particular player, even the quarterback, but I tend to be doing that, even though I like Stetson Bennett, and I really, really praised him for the 3 games that he played to start the season. Came off the bench, not a ideal situation in a 7-2 game that Georgia was losing against Arkansas in week 1. And he played extremely well in that game and through the first 3 games of the season. Maybe it was just a bad night. Maybe it was a situation in which he was overwhelmed by the stage, the situation, the enormity of the game. I don't know either one of those to be true. I'm sure Stetson Bennett can play better football because he did the first 3 games, albeit not against the type of talent on the other side of the ball. Although Arkansas, Auburn in particular on defense, close to Alabama standards. And then in game 3, let's see, Georgia beat Tennessee. So not nearly as much defensive talent aside from the Auburn game that Stetson Bennett had to play. And in that particular game, he got to play from in front against Auburn, and he had that ground game working, which really protected him. So I think it was a poor outing by Stetson Bennett. I think Stetson Bennett is a capable quarterback. If you're the 20th or 25th or 40th best team in the country, and you are looking to go 8-4, 7-5, and go to a bowl game and have a nice little season at a mid-tier Power 5 conference team. But I don't know that Stetson Bennett, I don't think that he has shown us anything different than what we should have expected. So the expectations for his level of play against Alabama should not have been blown through the roof. He is the quarterback that's the least regarded from a scouting standpoint of any quarterback in the Georgia room. So we shouldn't be surprised with his performance. It was spotty in the first half, more good than bad. And then it was a whole lot more bad than good in the second half. And he tried to make some throws that he was incapable of making. SEC Dog, good to see you. Cheryl, of course, good to see you. Thanks for being a moderator. Doing a heck of a job. SEC Dog asked Dave why he blocked me on his channel. Don't know who that would be. All right. We'll keep moving along. Sometimes I click on the comments and take them to the screen before I read them. And sometimes I get a bit burned. George, we appreciate you checking in. George is driving somewhere out there in the Northwest. Got Shanktopotamus, who says, nobody actually respects Georgia, Mark. You saw my prediction. Shanktopotamus, I hate to disappoint you. I'm not keeping track of your predictions. I don't know that I saw it. If I saw it, it probably went right by me because I see about 152 predictions per day on my channel, on Twitter, and I don't pay attention to them. I just don't. Okay. Dennis says, Alan V., remember how you told us Jamie Newman would win the Heisman? How did that all work out? Well, it's a bit difficult to win that Heisman when you don't step on the field. Don't know that our guy Alan V. could have predicted that. You know, who knew what opting out was 7 months ago? Opting out. We would have thought, what are you talking about? Is this some kind of, yeah. Opting out became a thing. I am going to go straight to the SEC schedule. But again, we got Lon Philip Sullivan on the line, hopefully coming up with LSU Odyssey. We got David Waters from Gators Breakdown, Kevin McGuffey, Last Word on College Football, Jake Evans from the Rebel Walk, and Brent Beard from First Coast News and College Sports Today. Also, coming off this big Alabama win against Georgia, of course, we want to talk Alabama, Georgia, in addition to what I've got for you. And so we've got some feelers out for Stephen M. Smith of TouchdownAlabama.com and our guy Palmer Toms from Dogs 247 Sports. All right, so in the SEC coming up on Saturday, and then we will get to the LSU story as well. Our slate is an abbreviated one for Week 8, of course, with Florida sidelined in particular. We've got Ole Miss hosting Auburn coming up on noon, at noon, SEC Network. Alabama, Tennessee, and Knoxville. Oh, there's another bit of SEC content that I highly recommend. We sat down with Wes Rucker from 247 Sports, and Wes had a great bit of insight into the Tennessee situation. The defensive line coach, Jimmy Brumbaugh, stepped away this week, which is always alarming when a positional coach or any coach steps away. If it's not for health reasons, for operational reasons, Jimmy Brumbaugh stepping away as defensive line coach at Tennessee in the middle of the season. Jeremy Pruitt's going to have to take over coaching the D-line. Of course, the quarterback situation, that's a mess unlike anywhere in the SEC right now, with Jarrett Guarantano and his backups, CJ Shrout. CJ Shrout is the last name. I confuse him sometimes with CJ Shroud, who is the on the Ohio State roster. But it's Shrout is backup quarterback for Tennessee. And you also have a few other players in play. Brian Maurer is the guy who certainly has had the most time in the backup role in playing for Tennessee. And we talked Tennessee football. So again, our conversation with Wes Rucker of Go Vols 247 Sports, very interesting. Alabama, Tennessee. No one expects Tennessee to win this game. I don't know that they could score enough points in 5 games to beat Alabama. But what does a good outing look like for Tennessee football? So just 6 quarters ago, just about 10 days ago, it was halftime of the Georgia-Tennessee game. The Vols were 2-0. They had a 4-point lead at halftime over Georgia on the road. So a lot has changed with the Tennessee Vols in 6 quarters. They got blanked by Georgia in the second half, 27-0. Then they turn around, come home, take on Kentucky, who they had beaten 17 consecutive times at home, and they got pummeled 34-7. So Tennessee football for the last 6 quarters is looking at a deficit of 61-7. We'll get to that story, Cheryl. LSU losing 8 scholarships because of money given to Odell Beckham Jr. was listed. There might be some other ones involved. Kentucky at Missouri. Wildcats at 2-2 after 2 losses to start the year. Missouri, of course, had the big win against LSU at the wire. LSU's hosting South Carolina. The Tigers taking on the Gamecocks, who Will Muschamp and company coming off a big comeback win against Auburn, trailing 16-7. They outscored the Tigers, 23-15 to close that out. No, my math is bad. They outscored Auburn 23-6 to close out Auburn and Bo Nix at home. So much angst on the plains right now with the Auburn Tigers. So again, only 8 SEC teams in play this week, which this is telling me that if we're not seeing the Texas A&M Arkansas game, that might have slipped by me as well, that game has been canceled. So let's get to the headlines and make something of this. So we look at the ESPN story here. LSU football losing 8 scholarships, banning Odell Beckham Jr. for 2 years over improper payments. All right. This is a report coming in from Adam Rittenberg and Mark Schlabach of ESPN. LSU has self-imposed penalties related to the NCAA's investigation into improper booster payments to its football players. A university spokesman confirmed to ESPN Wednesday. Sports Illustrated first reported that the Tigers will lose 8 scholarships over 2 years, will reduce recruiting visits, evaluations, and communication, and have banned. Oh, we got our man calling up. We'll get back to LSU football here in just a second. Stephen M. Smith, Touchdown Alabama. How you doing today?
Doing good, Mark, and yourself?
We're doing great. Appreciate you calling in. We're just catching up with some of this late-breaking news out of LSU. I don't know if you caught up with any of that.
I did see some of that.
Yeah. So we'll have to hear more on that. But LSU self-imposing some penalties based on improper payments to 8 players, including Mr. Odell Beckham Jr. All right. So elsewhere in the SEC, we witnessed the biggest game of the year thus far and what might turn out to be a rematch in the SEC championship game. So we saw what it looked like for one half and then even deep into the third quarter. And then we saw an Alabama offense just continue to roll against a bit of a weary Georgia defense. And of course, the Dogs couldn't keep up and had some mistakes in the passing game. Your thoughts, your initial take before I grind it down a little bit further on Alabama's 41-24 win.
My initial take from the game, Mark, the first half was a little bit concerning there. I know Mac Jones had a little bit of frustration at the quarterback position. Georgia was getting pressure to him. He had the interception there, but he was able to put everything behind him and finish the game with a great performance, 24 of 32 passing, 417, 4 touchdowns, 1 pick. But the game was in the second half where the defensive front for Alabama finally got that consistent push, and that's what fans have been waiting to see all season. You know, watching DJ Dale and Christian Barmore, Darian Mathis, Byron Young, and the rest of the crew affect Stetson Bennett in the pocket. But they couldn't get sacks, get your hands up, knock the ball down. Of the 10 pass breakups that Alabama had, 5 of those came from the defensive front. So the defensive front getting the pressure, which resulted in 3 turnovers for Georgia offensively. The crowd of the fan base in Tuscaloosa very proud of the second half performance, especially of a defensive line being able to stand up there, get that push, and a big performance also from Will Reichert, the kicker. Alabama's got the healthy kicker now. Made a 33-yard field goal, and then also a 52-yard field goal to end the half to give Alabama some big momentum as it trailed 24-20 at halftime. So big momentum from the kicker, the defensive front, big pressure there in the second half, and Mac Jones continuing to roll here.
Yeah, so that Alabama receiving core, again, it seems like the only thing that limits them are the number of plays or the yardage totals, and the stats would just be through the roof even more. Devante Smith, just when I didn't think that he could impress us anymore, seems to be even improving. Is that possible?
It is, if you can say that. And it's, Smitty, Devante Smith has been through 3 different phases in his career, Mark. So his freshman phase, he was kind of the overlooked receiver. People looked at Judy and Ruggs a bit more and other guys, but Smith became Mr. Game-winning clutch catch wide receiver as a freshman. And in his sophomore year, he was the guy that built off of that as one of 5 weapons to catch at least 50 passes from Tua Tagovailoa. And then last year, he showed he can be the leading man, being the leader in receiving yards with 1,256 and 14 touchdowns. And now he's become just a complete package, all-around guy. NFL scouts and evaluators and pundits are trying to find a flaw in his game, and right now they can't find one. I mean, even at 6'1", 175 pounds, he has kind of that wiry strength, but the young man's got the hands, he's got the speed, he's got the route concepts committed to memory, he's got the ability to elevate and pluck the ball out of the air, contort his body, maintain balance. Just a full package, all-around guy to where he's going to be a top 5 to top 10 pick. I would be surprised if he falls out of the top 50, if he goes past top 15, because, I mean, Smitty's the type of player that Mac Jones talked about it after the game. He's got this Michael Jordan level of competitiveness to where it doesn't matter if he's triple covered. He wants the football, and he's going to make a play on the football. And just seeing him take that next step even more and being that full package all-around guy, it's so fun to watch.
So the defense got shredded. We talked about it after the Ole Miss game. Then, as you stated and alluded to just a second ago, not looking great in the first half, and there'd be some concern there. And then they pitch a shutout in the second half. So, of course, Stetson Bennett's going to take the blame for that. But What did you see out of the Alabama defense that made that happen?
The defense that made that happen in the second half was, number one, the defensive line winning the one-on-one battles. And I talked about it prior to the Georgia game, Mark, about how Alabama has to simplify the game plan for the defensive linemen instead of just doing the normal two-gap blocking that it's known for doing, just having your guy beat the opponent one-on-one and then go get the football. And that's exactly what it did in the second half, beating the opponent one-on-one and attacking the ball. And even when it could not quite get to Stetson Bennett, raising their hands up in the air and knocking passes down to frustrate him even more and shake his confidence a little bit more and being able to get off the field there on third down. I know people love sacks, and sacks make the stat sheet. They look ginormous, but Saban has always talked about, even if you can't get the sack, there are other ways to affect the passer. You can knock the ball down. You can flush him out of the pocket. You can knock him off his spot. You can collapse the pocket where he can't step up and throw. There are a number of different ways to affect the quarterback. And the players really bought into that mindset last week in the second half of, okay, if we can't get to Bennett, get our hands up, knock the ball down, use the other ways to, let him know that, he's feeling our presence.
So now there's a date in Knoxville against Tennessee. Alabama's, of course, owned this series for quite some time. It's still one of the great rivalries in college football. And certainly Tennessee, if you add everything up, would have the second most illustrious history in the SEC in regards to wins, winning percentage, SEC titles, and so forth. But Tennessee feeling good about itself up until about halftime of the Georgia game at 2-0, had a 4-point lead against the Dogs. Since then, they've been outscored 61-7, having all sorts of issues at quarterback. Are there any concerns in this one for Alabama?
There's not really any concerns, but the main thing that Coach Saban has preached on is not to take anyone lightly, especially Tennessee, as he's facing another former assistant in Jeremy Pruitt. The issue with the Vols has been turnovers, as you brought that up. Tennessee had the lead 21-17, and in the second half, you get a bad interception by Jarrett Guarantano and 2 lost fumbles for Guarantano, to which Georgia capitalizes on those 3 turnovers to win the game 44-21. And then last week, you have 4 to 5 turnovers against Kentucky, which is the reason why the Wildcats won 34-7. So turnovers have been a giant bugaboo here for the Volunteers, and Pruitt has got to get that patched up. The question will be, which quarterback will they trot out there against Alabama? Guarantano's kind of fighting for his job at this moment. You still have Harrison Bailey, the 4-star freshman, among other guys. So that'll be the big question here for Alabama is, who do you sort of prepare for? You don't have that time to know. Of course, Pruitt's not going to put that information out there, so you got to prepare for everybody. But at the same time, the biggest thing from Saban is to not give, don't allow what you did from the Georgia game to cause you to overlook what Tennessee is bringing to the table. Still have that humility, still be able to give the solid practice, which Alabama has done the entire week as far as the energy and the intensity has been, and going out there and playing, especially defensively, the way you played in that second half against Georgia. Carry that same mindset, that same mentality to Neyland Stadium in Knoxville.
Good stuff from Stephen M. Smith of Touchdown Alabama. Please join him right there, touchdownalabama.com. And Stephen, once again, when can we catch your live call-in show?
Absolutely, they can catch the live show on Friday. We got one more coming on Friday of this week. We'll be breaking down more of the Alabama-Tennessee game. I'll actually have my man Trey Wallace, who covers the Vols out of the Fox Sports Station in Knoxville. So it'll be awesome to have Trey on Friday. So you can catch you Friday, 6 p.m. Central Time on YouTube.
There you go, Stephen. We appreciate you stopping by, sir.
Absolutely, Mark. You guys have a good one.
Sir, guys, Stephen M. Smith, Touchdown Alabama. Life is rough, covering the Tide. Certainly score 24 straight against maybe the third or fourth best team in the country. Well, I got two guys on the line right here. We're going to go to Jake Evans of the Rebel Walk since he was scheduled there at 8:30 Eastern time. Lon, hang on for us if you can. We'll talk some Ole Miss football. Jake, how you doing today?
Mark, good to see you. It's always good to see you. How you been?
Absolutely. Good to see you as well. Good to see you as well. And I know the record's 1-3. But I think it's been pretty fun for Ole Miss fans to at least watch this football team play. Week 1, a ton of points and scoring on both sides against Florida. Then you get that game against Kentucky. That was a wild one that goes to overtime, and you get a bit fortunate there with the missed PAT. You went step for step with Alabama, which I got to admit surprised me. 48-48 game with about 5-6 minutes left in that one before you go down to the Tide, and we know and see what they did to Georgia. And so then comes this game against Arkansas, even turning the ball over 7 times. The Rebs are still in the game, but certainly not the game that Matt Corral had turned in the first 3 or 4 games of the season, or the first 3 games of the season against this Arkansas bunch. So where do you size things up beyond the 1-3 record?
Well, Mark, the thing that's tough right now is that through the first 3 games, Ole Miss was exactly where we thought they would be. And realistically, that's where we had hoped, we kind of hoped that the trend that we saw over the first 3 games was going to keep moving. Lane Kiffin came in. He had done a very good job very early on of moving the ball up and down the field. He's moving the ball at light speed compared to some of these defenses. I mean, we saw after the Alabama game, Nick Saban and Dylan Moses were accusing us of stealing signals because the Rebs were moving so fast. And so, over those first couple games, we're headed in a great direction. We're moving the ball. Elijah Moore right now is on pace to absolutely smash the Ole Miss single season record in catches. He's racking in about 10 or 11 a game. And so, the first couple weeks we're feeling good. We go toe to toe with Alabama for 57 minutes. That was not supposed to happen in year 1. That was supposed to be a year 2, maybe 3, maybe even year 4 project. And so we're ahead of schedule in our minds, and we feel good. And then last week, just Arkansas seems to always be a trap game for the Rebels. It seems to be a game that we can never just, we can just never go in and beat them if we're the better team. And, it always causes problems for us. One of the things that people talked a lot about this week was, well, Ole Miss is the better team because it took them 7 turnovers to lose the game. Well, it's nice to say that. And realistically, it took the fifth interception was the one that sealed the game for Arkansas. And so at that point, there were already 6 turnovers on the board. And that was when it finally was over for the Rebels. So, that's a positive to take from it. It's a pretty bleak positive. But, when you're still in football games, when you've turned the ball over 6 times, not to say you're doing something right, but there's more to the story there. And so, we're encouraged by it because we think this team can continue to go up and up, especially on the offense. But the best thing we saw last week was the defense. The defense was on pace to be probably the worst defense in college football history through the first 3 games. And then they do a 180 against Arkansas, but sadly the offense doesn't show up.
Got Jake Evans on the line from the Rebel Walk. Please join him and the rest of the staff there covering Ole Miss football. No championship for the Rebels this year, but it's a fun team to watch with Lane Kiffin on the sideline trying to run X's and O's against the SEC defenses. And they'll do so against the Auburn Tigers and what's been a really good defense. That's not been their problem necessarily much this year. They come off an upset loss against South Carolina on the road. And I would have considered this, even though if I'm remembering my SEC predictions, I did tag this as an Ole Miss upset in the preseason. Auburn would have been a substantial favorite, a month ago. But now we're looking at an Auburn team that's reeling. Ole Miss plays well at home. They're scoring a ton of points. Auburn's having trouble on offense with Bo Nix. This is certainly a winnable game.
It is. And the thing is looking at Ole Miss's schedule now. After the Alabama game, a lot of Ole Miss fans looked at their schedule and thought we should not lose another game this year. Based on what we've seen through the first 3 weeks, we thought that there's nobody on our schedule that can outscore us. Almost every single team on the schedule has a much better defense than us right now, but we think that we can outscore most of the teams we've got. And this is one of the games that's been circled on the calendar because, every year in the SEC, if you're going to make any kind of noise and if you're going to take any positive momentum to the next year, you can't just beat Arkansas, Vanderbilt, and Mississippi State. You have to beat an Auburn. You have to compete with a Bama team. You have to, you have to beat a Kentucky this year. So it's games like this that are kind of the ones where you're not supposed to win it, but you really need to. It'd be a huge momentum boost for the program. Right now, like we said, Ole Miss is only 1-3. Kentucky's not going to be that signature win this year. And I think anybody who says that's the signature win is crazy. This game right here is one that Ole Miss needs to go get. Auburn right now looks about as weak as they might look. I would hate to give them a couple more weeks to kind of get their footing and maybe work out some of these issues. And so I think the Rebs are catching them at a good time. I think Bo Nix is shaky, and I think that's good because obviously Matt Corral was a little shaky. And so, I think we're catching them at a good time. I think that Ole Miss's defense is going to have a big task on their hands this week because they saw last week the way that you beat Bo Nix is you get to him and you make him run around, you make him get out of the pocket. He loses his mechanics. He throws the ball around, throws it across his body. He doesn't play smart football all the time when he moves. And so the goal for the Rebels this week is going to be to get pressure to him. The first couple weeks of the season, the Rebels were not able to do that. And they did a much better job last week getting after Felipe Franks at Arkansas. And so they need to kind of build on what they had last week because if they're not able to get after Bo Nix, I think Auburn's going to fall right back into stride where we've seen them before. And they're going to, kind of reestablish themselves as a top 15 team again and put it on the Rebels. But I think the pass rush is what gets to stop that.
Got a team with 2 losses, another one with 3. It's not necessarily going to factor into the SEC Western Division race, but it should be a whole lot of fun and an interesting one with Ole Miss hosting Auburn. And if Gus Malzahn posts another L, the seat's going to get hot for him. There's no doubt about that. Lane Kiffin on certainly in a honeymoon stage with Ole Miss. Not that he wants to rack up L's, but he's in good shape for a long tenure there in Oxford, and they're a fun team to watch. Jake Evans, Rebel Walk, we appreciate you stopping by, man.
Mark, thank you much.
And we will attempt to stay on schedule here, so we're going to go to David Waters from Gators Breakdown. David, how you doing?
Good, Mark. How about you, man?
I'm doing just fine. Appreciate you stopping by, as always, of course. This Florida situation is not about football right now. It's about keeping people healthy and having negative tests and not letting that contact tracing get out of hand. A lot of things, David, unfortunately, for the last 6 or 7 months, you've had to learn about, I've had to learn about, we've had to become near medical experts over the last 7 months just to try to track these stories and figure out, as we are asked every day, what's going to happen? What's going to happen? What is the latest in regards to Florida's preparation for its next game?
So no practice till next Monday, Mark. So the last practice for Florida was last Monday. So 2 weeks without practice. And look, yeah, you get a break a bit, but even a traditional bye week in a regular season, you're practicing 3 times a week. And Florida will go 14 days without practicing or 13 days without practicing. And that's going to be a big hit. You were scheduled to play Missouri this coming up Saturday after the game last week versus LSU was postponed to December 12th. And now, 31 players right now have tested positive in the month of October for the Gators. So you're looking at that, and you had a game versus Missouri that was supposed to be this weekend, pushed to October 31st. So if your first day of practice is Monday, then you basically – and it's not going to be the whole team, Mark. There's 31 players who's tested positive, and a whole slew of them last week, and they tested positive at different intervals of the week last week. So you're not even – when you take the field on Monday, you're not going to have a full team and a full staff. Dan Mullen's got coronavirus. The head coach of Florida tested positive. He mentioned last week 2 staff members who tested positive as well. We haven't got an updated number on the staff yet, so I would imagine it ran rampant through the staff like it's running through the team right now as well. So when Florida, even when Florida gets back together on Monday to prepare for Missouri, they're not going to be a full team when they do it.
Got David Waters on the line from Gators Breakdown. Check out Gators Breakdown on your favorite audio platform or right here on YouTube. I think Lincoln Riley was the first one who brought this up way back when, thinking about the ramifications of different positional units being hit and then thinking, okay, we got to cross-train wide receivers to play defensive back, and you can go through the list of what units could be, there could be some correlation to. Was there any talk about that, or has that been done, weeks and months in advance? Any thought about that helping repair some of the damage to the personnel losses, maybe for the next game?
Mark, we don't even know who tested positive, so I couldn't even tell you if it's linebackers, and do you shift, guys you have for that rush in spot to play linebacker? Is it secondary, like you said, and you have to train some wide receivers to go there? We don't even know who has tested positive yet, and we probably shouldn't know. They'll put that. We'll see if Florida puts it out or anything like that. But as far as defense goes, and look, it's probably has caused some of the issues for Florida in the way they recruit. They have recruited versatile players anyway. So there's a lot of guys who can play an outside linebacker, nickel, even maybe slide back to safety a little bit. Some guys who play that rush in outside linebacker spot, maybe play defensive end as well. They've recruited some versatile pieces on this defense that may help out in this situation. But to me, has probably caused a lot of the issues we've seen on this Florida defense the last 3 weeks, as well as not having a true linebacker, not having a true nickel, not having true safeties. That has probably contributed to some of these issues. No true defensive tackle depth either. So going back and looking at it, versatility, it may, as the season goes on, and if other teams are hit or Florida gets hit again or something like that, it may be beneficial. But I also think it's overall caused a problem for Florida too when you just look at the football side of things in playing games.
So the offense is humming, especially the passing game. But of course, we'll do what we do, and that's dissect and criticize what's going wrong. So we'll turn to the defense, and you hit on maybe some possible issues there with maybe not the best fits in terms of personnel versus position. But, while it's difficult in this situation to teach better technique and find those issues in regards to then applying them to the players, obviously the coaches can go crazy over the next several weeks with all this time to try to figure out what went wrong. But in your mind, and I know you watch these games more than once, what is wrong with the Florida defense?
Mark, that's probably part of the problem, kind of going back and looking at these couple weeks here that Florida has. Yeah, they can dissect, and that they probably will figure out what they have to do. But are you really going to have time to implement everything that you've learned when you got a game coming up in 5 days? I don't think so. So do you simplify it? I'm sure, to me, that should be the first step, Mark. There are too many times in a third-year Todd Grantham defense, and a lot of guys on this defense have played a lot of snaps for whatever reason. Now, week one, you can kind of forgive it. They're not getting lined up in time. But week one, you can kind of forgive. Going against Ole Miss, a new look Ole Miss offense, they're running fast. I can excuse it a little bit. But games 2 and games 3, when you still can't get lined up in time, especially when offenses really aren't even moving that fast, it seems communication issues. You get a lot of communication issues on the back end, giving up some big plays as well. And then the physicality part of it. And, okay, I can buy that for early season, game 1, game 2. But when it's been the third game of the season and Texas A&M comes out right after halftime and runs the ball down your throat, and Florida does, and part of that's guys playing out of position, going back to my original point. Amari Burney is not a good fit at linebacker. Florida doesn't have a lot of true defensive tackle depth, and it's showing. Florida's not a very physical defense right now, and that's what Todd Grantham's known for. He's supposed to be known as his fast, physical, aggressive defense, and we're not seeing it. So, to me, it looks easy on the surface a bit. Can you tackle better? Can you communicate better? Can you line up better? But, to me, the issues, when you look this bad, Mark, I mean, this Florida offense, or this Florida defense is terrible. It is bad. And when it's this bad, it's both. It's coaches and it's players. But I think the first step is the coaches helping these players, putting them in the right position, making the defense easier to read, playing some guys who probably deserve some playing time now because there's some veterans out there who aren't getting the job done. And go from there. But something different has to happen. It has to change. At least go out there and change something. And if it doesn't work, okay, at least you tried.
So if all goes well, Florida's next game is a date at home against Missouri, coming up in just a little over a week.
10 days. October
10 days.
Halloween.
So
Yep.
a week from Saturday, again in the swamp against Mizzou, who the last time the Tigers were out there were obviously carving up another talented but very underachieving defense in LSU to the tune of 41 points and a zillion yards through the air. So that's the test for the Gators. They try to get back on track after a field goal loss at Kyle Field against Texas A&M. David Waters, Gators Breakdown. You got to get there. If you love college football, forget Florida. Even if you don't like Florida, you want to follow the SEC, want to follow the premier programs in the country, get to Gators Breakdown to follow Florida football and on your favorite audio platform as well. David, we appreciate you stopping by.
Thanks, Mark.
Now we're going to make our way to the very patient Lon Phillips Sullivan. And this is what happens when we get our guests backed up here to a certain extent. But Lon, we appreciate you hanging out with us.
Oh, hey, Mark, what's up? How you doing?
You at least didn't fall asleep on you, and the dog's still feeling good. He's still spry and alert.
Rivers, calm down. Sorry, the dog's barking. Yeah, how's it going, Mark?
We're doing just fine. How are you?
Doing all right, considering the crazy news we've heard today.
Yeah, we heard some crazy news, and I was just basically, once I got the roll call and the lineup started here, we were just diving into this one. So basically, self-imposed penalties at LSU, NCAA investigation, 8 players receiving improper recruiting visits, evaluations, communication, improper payments, and so forth. Odell Beckham Jr. involved, going to be banned from the football facilities for 2 years. Anything else that you can give us on this one?
Oh, absolutely. Here's the thing. The payments, that was from a convicted felon, John Paul Funes, back in 2012 to 2015. This is during the Les Miles, Joe Oliva era. Most of the bad news coming to our doorstep, including the Darius Geis allegations that came out a little bit ago, they all have one thing in common: Joe Oliva and Les Miles. And don't be saying that this is anything to do with Ed Orgeron. Of course, the Odell Beckham incident, that was definitely on Orgeron's watch, but that wasn't anything to do with Orgeron. That was just a spontaneous combustion from Odell there, and he's going to pay the price. LSU is going to lose a great ambassador for a few years, and it's just sad for him. I feel bad for Odell. Hopefully he'll learn from it, because he did jeopardize the program in that moment. That was real cash, and he did jeopardize it in that moment. LSU admitted that. LSU self-imposed, but as far as the payments and things like that, LSU is we're feeling a little bit perturbed by the NCAA recently. We feel like there's a little bit of a witch hunt. They're trying to combine our case with the Will Wade basketball case. We feel like they're trying to push for level 1 lack of institutional control violations. And these cases are completely separate. The basketball investigation is nowhere near finished. The football investigation has been finished for a long time now, almost since March or April. And these are from the Les Miles eras. So it is very bizarre for anyone to try and put this on Coach Ed Orgeron. Orgeron is not the one responsible for any manner of these violations. This is completely from the Joe Oliva, Les Miles era.
Well, that's unfortunately pretty standard in regards to the way the NCAA handles issues and has for its history in regards to a lot of this information coming out 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 years later, and then the wrong people certainly have to suffer the pain and the ramifications of somebody else's sins and transgressions after they take off.
Absolutely. And Les Miles, he's leaving a stain here at LSU, and it's not surprising. I was a big Les Miles fan. He was one of my heroes back in the day. But when you really look back at it, when you really look at, especially when you can see how far LSU can go with their skill position players just on the field, but when we're talking about off the field incidents, when we're talking about things being reported like sexual assaults, which is a very rare crime at LSU. I mean, I've looked into the crime of sexual assault in college football big time. We're writing a big story on it. And LSU is one of the rarest. We have one of the rarest incidents of sexual assault by our players in the country. But the Darius Geis case, the way that was handled, it firmly lays on the table of Les Miles. And that has continued with these, impermissible benefits and these payments to Don Alexander. And that was by a booster, John Paul Funes, not to be confused with Led Zeppelin bassist John Paul Jones. This is back in 2012, 2015, Mark. And so anyone trying to wave some banner of LSU, LSU are running this racket where they're pulling in recruits, pay to play. It's not like we have Rod Blagojevich as our athletic director right now. Okay, we're running a really professional ship here. We've got just a sterling national brand. LSU is at the top of the mountain right now, and this is what it's about. They're trying to come at us. They're trying to come at us from every direction. We knew that this would happen. There were whispers of NCAA violations and things like that and investigations, but there had never been anything concrete. There had never been any notice of violations given to the basketball team or the football team until today. And that's just the news breaking of LSU's self-imposed violation.
So it sounds, Lon, as though even though there has been a self-imposed guideline and we're looking at 8 lost scholarships, that this could just be the beginning of more sanctions coming down.
Exactly. That's why I'm kind of a little emotional here, because I feel like it makes no sense to me to go down that path, because this is from a prior administration. Les Miles, he's a current coach right now. Why don't you hit Les Miles? You don't have to hit Kansas, but hit Les Miles with this, because he is the human being behind this, and as well as Joe Oliva. Ed Orgeron, Scott Woodward, they're running a great ship, and the Odell Beckham Jr. is the only incident that has happened on their watch, and that was completely on Odell. Everybody knows what was going on. Everybody who's on the sidelines knows that didn't just happen, at the end of the game. He was doing crazy stuff all throughout the game, and then just the money was the cherry on top right there, just because the cameras were there. And he's paying the price for it. LSU is paying the price for it as well, and that's the sad thing.
So yeah, we all raised an eyebrow there and thought, okay, yeah, this is Odell Beckham Jr. just kind of taking the spotlight for himself. Number one, number two, this is a violation in and of itself, because these players are still eligible, even though they played their last down. Many of them in college football, they're still student athletes. But is anything going to come of this? Is this just the surface or the look of other things that are going on and have gone on previously?
Absolutely not. I'm trying to think of who the players were that were involved, and I'm thinking every one of those players either opted out or already went into the draft. That would be Justin Jefferson. I think Kerry Vincent was one of them. He opted out as well. So there's no current players who took that money or were given money by Odell Beckham Jr. LSU's been running a clean program. This is just a complete. Okay, let's be honest here. NCAA is absolute fraud. Okay, what is their purpose right now? What is their purpose? It's just to be the biggest buzzkill in sports, and they're just a funnel for money, really. Tell me if I'm wrong.
Well, I think the NCAA is very inconsistent in its rulings. There's no question about that. There's no question that I think we can easily believe and understand that, even though there's no proof for it, that for all the programs that have been caught, that there are other ones cheating, that either the NCAA doesn't necessarily follow those trails and go down those paths. They leave them alone, or there's also a situation in which I think there has to be a level of it being so egregious that the NCAA just can't ignore it. And if they believe that they can go down that trail and that path and be successful in that investigation, then they're going to. Very few times do we hear there's an investigation and then nothing comes of it. Nothing is. I think that they pick and choose the ones that they can win.
Absolutely, and that is one thing that is kind of worrying. But I feel like, we're not hearing this about Jamar Chase taking money, Joe Burrow taking money. Any of our current players, any of our players from the Orgeron era. We're hearing from players 2012 and 2015, and it's one player, Vadon Alexander, and it's one booster, John Paul Funes. So I don't really feel like that. There's a whole ton of smoke here. I feel like NCAA are willing to commit arson to make sure that the fire is there.
So it is certainly the biggest story of the day and possibly the season in SEC football. It goes well beyond the field in which LSU is underachieving at this point. We all know that, coming off a national championship run, and otherwise we could sit on this one and carve through it, both on the field and in regards to this breaking story in the last few hours here with Lon Phillips Sullivan. But I'll move on to other guests. Lon, we'll have you back on. We'll discuss what's going on the field with LSU and in the recruiting battles, but certainly not a good day for LSU sports and athletics or football in general.
Yeah, we can turn it around. That's the thing about LSU. Never say die. Go Tigers.
Got Kentucky coming off a big win as we continue here at SEC Live. We come your way each and every Wednesday night at 8 o'clock Eastern time and try to grab as many SEC bloggers, broadcasters, and writers as possible to set you up for the weekend in SEC football. And it's been a good weekend for 2 consecutive Saturdays for Kentucky football. We got Kevin McGuffey on the line from Last Word on College Football. Join him and the rest of the staff. And here we go with a shot at Georgia. That's been a difficult one for the Wildcats to deal with in recent years. Kevin and I talked Kentucky's 34-7 win over Tennessee. Please check out that video. Kevin, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing good, Mark.
Oh, Kevin, we don't have you. Unfortunately, don't have any audio from Kevin. Give that a look. Hopefully that comes through for us. Again, number 4, Georgia, coming off the big loss in Tuscaloosa, taking on Kentucky and Mark Stoops. Cats beat Tennessee, basically shut out Mississippi State the week before.
Can you get me now?
There we go.
Okay. Apparently my headset wasn't working. Before we get started.
Sure.
Do what?
Yes, sir.
We talked about this on Saturday, but the SEC flipped the schedule this week. Kentucky's actually playing Missouri on Saturday, and we're playing Georgia on Halloween now. As part of the whole Florida, COVID, Vandy, all that stuff, they moved a whole bunch of games around, and Kentucky was 2 of those that sorry, I was reading the comment there. The 2 of the games that got switched. So now Kentucky goes to Missouri this weekend and then then hosts Georgia on Saturday. So
there we go. I had a link to an old schedule. There it is. Kentucky at Mizzou in Columbia, 4 o'clock on the SEC network.
Yes, sir. As you were saying, it's been a very fun 4 days here around Lexington and Kentucky with the Big Blue Nation going down and just totally, dismantling, blasting, whatever adjective you want to use, at Tennessee. First win in Knoxville since 1984, and only the 4th time since 1984 that Kentucky's has defeated Tennessee. So it's been a fun, as I said, it's been a fun few days, and it's also been really fun just kind of watching the meltdown. I'm sure I'll get in trouble for saying this. I don't care. The meltdown of Tennessee fans on various forms of social media, including some of the writers at Last Word. So anyway, but it's, what, I'll take it. You win one time in 36 years, you get to gloat a little bit.
Well, Kevin, not to get stuck on Tennessee football, but I don't think there's any question. There is a fan base right there that's as starved as any in the nation to win. One that's used to winning if you've got a few years behind you under your belt. And so for them to get a little sliver of success and think that could prove to be more. So they come down the stretch drive last year. They win 6 straight. They win the bowl game. They come into this year. They grab 2 wins. Then they're sitting there against Georgia on the road up by 4 at half. And they're feeling pretty good toward a possible huge monumental upset But here we are, like 9 days later, and they've been outscored 61-7 ever since. And they've got all sorts of issues.
Yeah, no, and like I said, I like Jeremy Pruitt. We talked about this last year. I think he can. There's a lot of people that may not think that now. I think he can do a good job down there. As I said, Kentucky, Kentucky's had so many bad days down there. It was just, for once, it was Kentucky's day where everything went right, and it was, like I said, it was just a great day overall. But now, to use that coach speak, it's time to put that one behind them and start focusing on Missouri. So, and going from there and trying to make it 3 in a row or 3 in a row on the season. And it would be 6 in a row against Missouri if they win on Saturday, which would tie a Kentucky SEC record, beating a team 6 years in a row. The last time it happened was Vanderbilt, 1976 to 1981. So there you go. A little history lesson for you here on this Wednesday night.
A little history lesson, but if you would have given me a guess, certainly I think that probably is down in the SEC record book for every member of the SEC except Vandy, is that who's your longest winning streak against? Vandy. Mm-hmm. So Kentucky just falls in line with that. Our guy Travis Williams in the live chat says, true on all that, but Kentucky got to score some points big time to beat Georgia and Florida. But I know that you are not looking past this Missouri game. They just came off a 41-point effort against LSU, where they were throwing the ball all over the place.
Yeah, absolutely not. And whether, you look at Missouri's first 2 games this year, they played, pretty well against Alabama, honestly, and against Tennessee. Tennessee got out to bigger lead. They scored a little bit at the end, and then Alabama got, up big on them. But once again, Missouri came back and, made the score respectable. So, but yeah, you definitely have to respect, Missouri. It's, the quarterback Baszler, 692 yards on the season, 4 touchdowns. A lot of that came against LSU. But and then they have Larry Roundtree in the backfield, who seems like he's been at Missouri for 5, 6, 7 years. It's like it seems that way. Whether or not that's that's not true. It's not the Perry Ellis we always used to use as a basketball term. Perry Ellis, in Kansas, who seemed like he was in what am I trying to say? Was in school for years and years and years and years. And then of course you have Jalen Knox. A very, very talented wide receiver. I think it's going to be another big test for that Kentucky secondary. You think about how the first 2 weeks of the season, they got basically torched between Bo Nix and at Auburn, and then the Ole Miss game, and then turn around. Just, I don't know if the light switch went off, if something just finally clicked, but, they had the 6 interceptions against Mississippi State. First time ever that a Mike Leach team didn't score an offensive point in 20 years of coaching. And then you turn that back and then go back to last week against Tennessee, three more interceptions on 3 consecutive plays on 3 consecutive series. And 2 of those, they ran back for a touchdown. So Kentucky, you saw this last year. You saw this especially in 2018 when that defense is going and has it gets it rolling. They're really tough, really tough to beat, and they'll have to have another good game to beat Missouri on Saturday. I think they do win. I'm going to say I haven't finished my prediction or preview post yet for last word, but I'm going to say something like 31-21 Kentucky. So that'll be my pick for Saturday.
So we've got Kevin, an interesting comment here on the screen on a number of fronts here. So I vaguely recognize this guy. And that's kind of between the 2 of us. This is Sebi, and we worked together at ESPN for a long time. So it's good to see Sebi on the line here. Also, this is music to my ears in regards to lining up with my preseason prediction. Getting everyone ready for a spooky upset on Halloween night, Georgia at Kentucky. That would just be that would bring so much justification to my predictions. Mm-hmm. And I would gloat up here and read off so many critical comments and trash talking that I had to take over the last month or so.
Oh yeah, I mean, because you, as we talked about on Saturday, you picked Kentucky to go 8-2. I picked them to go 6-4, so you picked them to do better than I did. But I like his way of thinking. I think Kentucky if the defense is playing and they limit the turnovers, Terry Wilson and those guys limit the turnovers, the two games, the two big things along with the, getting lit up on defense was turnovers against both Auburn and Ole Miss. And, you keep that in check. I think playing at home, I think Kentucky's got a really good chance. I think they may have had a better chance had the schedule stayed the way it is, like kind of that trap game between playing Alabama and then playing Florida the next week. So I think Kentucky may have even had a better chance. But yeah, I definitely think Kentucky's got you always call in the boxing term a puncher's chance of winning the game. So it's going to be interesting. Like I said, we'll see. We'll see what happens, but we'll worry about that next week. We got to get through Missouri on Saturday.
Yeah, Mark Stoops has done a heck of a job again, but Kentucky Nation for football, you're not quite at that level to be looking past anyone. So it's Missouri on the road against Columbia. Just was caught off guard and really wanted to draw attention to that comment there. Georgia's coming up in 2 weeks. Kevin McGuffey, last word on college football. The folks over there have been amazing to me. You got Tony Siracusa, of course, Kevin. You got Jason Ray doing a fantastic job over there covering college football, and come over here and help me out quite a bit as well. Kevin, we appreciate it. You have a great night.
Thank you, Mark. I appreciate it. And hopefully we can talk to you again on Saturday after a Kentucky win.
All right. It's not a major week of games because of all the COVID issues out there and bye weeks and so forth, but we've got 4 games, 8 teams involved in the SEC coming up this weekend. Again, Auburn, Ole Miss, Alabama, Tennessee, Kentucky, Mizzou, and South Carolina goes to LSU to take on the Tigers. We got Brent Beard from First Coast News. You can also catch him on College Sports Today. Brent, how you doing tonight?
Mark, I'm doing well, my friend. It's always good to be on with you. I am fresh from Alabama, Georgia. I had a chance to go up and be in attendance for the game and got back here. Obviously, we live in the Jacksonville area, and we're waiting and hoping with the Florida fans that they can get back on the field and just start practicing, much less to have a game. So Gators with Missouri next week, and then Georgia, Florida the following week. Mark, the first time in recent memory that Georgia and Florida will not have an off week before they play each other. So that is quite unusual in this series. But again, Florida's had the time off, Georgia off this week. Listen, this schedule that changes, brother, by the day is causing some things that we've never seen before, but we can adapt and go with it from there.
So speaking of adapting, Brent, if you're able to, we would love to see your bright smile completely. If you're able to adjust the shot there, that would be great, because I'm not able to adjust the graphics there. They are what they are, and so they run right across that line. Perfect.
Fine. Good.
That looks good. Brent, I don't know another time in covering SEC football or college football in general that we've had the continuous storyline of an off-the-field issue that we've had to deal with this COVID situation. So in addition to just covering the week-to-week nuts and bolts of the wins and the losses, and then the wrinkles of the quarterback controversies and everything connected to the field, it has just been this running issue of having to deal with the COVID situation.
Well, it is, but I'll say this: I give the league a lot of credit. They knew, and Commissioner Greg Sankey knew going into this year, that they were going to have a little bit of wiggle room, and that obviously means that every team will have obviously they've got their bye, and then we've got the December the 12th Saturday to be able to fill in the gaps with some of these games. For instance, Florida being able to play LSU at that point instead of playing them originally when it was scheduled. But the other good thing about it is, Mark, is we haven't had any games canceled. And I think that's important at this point. And look, a lot of these Power 5 schools, particularly in the SEC, I mean, they've virtually got many hospitals on campus where they can take care of their students. I think these guys, and to me, instead of bemoaning any games that we miss or we get postponed, we need to be able to celebrate the ones that we play. So I was certainly one that thought we should go ahead and have the season, give the protocol a chance to take care of itself. I think it has at this point. Now, again, and I know this is SEC, not Big Ten, but the problem with the Big Ten, when they get started, Mark, there is no wiggle room. There are no off weeks in that situation if something happens. So I certainly wish them the best. We're glad they're playing. Pac-12 following suit shortly after that. But the SEC really did a good job in preparing for this. And frankly, I think the team like Florida, I mean, Florida's off. They practice again on Monday. They're doing the Zoom thing, which I'm sure they're tired of that, but that's just the reality of it. And they're working out on their own too. So, but the good thing is they played some games. These guys should be in shape. I'm sure they're toning up at this point. But again, I give credit where it's due with the individual schools and with the conference for setting this up, Mark, to where we would be able to get as many of these games in as possible.
So it's a tremendous 2 points that you make right there. I just want to underline them. Number one, because I'm sure a few people out there might have made a few double takes and shook their head when you said, well, we haven't had any games canceled. Let's understand the difference between postponement and cancellation. People are might be thinking, well, the Missouri-Florida game got canceled, or this game got canceled, or that game got canceled, or Vandy and Mizzou. No, the SEC, by playing as soon as it did, has that luxury, that flexibility to be able to reassign games. And at this point, there haven't been enough postponed to not be able to make those up. So they're in a good position right now. We know at the point that I've stopped charting, which was maybe a week or two ago, but I think the percentages pretty much hold true, that about 85% of these games are being played. So it goes without saying that the SEC or that the Big Ten, to your point, and the Pac-12 may run into some issues in trying to complete a full season. We hope for the very best that they're fortunate and blessed to be able to conclude a reasonable amount of games to be able to play a reasonable season, but it's unlikely that they're going to be able to play all the games. And that's one of the big pluses of being the Big 12, the ACC, and the SEC to a lesser extent, of getting out there and playing in front of this thing, to have that scheduling flexibility, which is ironic because, as you well know, Brent, the Big Ten was the one that was going to start before everyone else initially, so that they had more flexibility in the schedule.
Sure. Yeah. And hopefully, again, and I think what's exciting, and people may not realize this, but we've got some of these other conferences that are going to be starting in the next few weeks, which will probably give us some good, maybe some action before it's over, Mark, and some Tuesday, Wednesday games along with Thursday. So listen, I've never thought that college football should ever surrender to the NFL. They need to keep that Thursday night game going, but hopefully we'll get some, and I'm sure we will in November, some Tuesday and Wednesday night games too.
Yeah, I was just going to say, if it's a night of the week, there's probably going to be a MAC game on. So just flip on, find your favorite ESPN alternate channel, and you're going to find a game from Action at some point. I got to credit Brent. He sends me an email, and I'm sure other people receive it as well, each and every day, that is just a voluminous documentation of notes and stats and trends and facts, both reviewing the previous weekend and then also looking forward to that weekend in college football. And I just gained so much from it. So, Brent, thank you for that.
Absolutely.
And this guy, each and every time I have him on, it just shows himself to be so valuable in reviewing what is going on in the SEC and at Florida State in particular, in diving into the ACC. So Brent, I'm going to leave it carte blanche in regards to your impression of the first 4 to 5 weeks in the SEC and what really catches your eye. But I'm going to slightly lean you in one direction, because I'm fascinated with this Arkansas football program.
Well, you read my mind. I was going to mention them first. And look, Sam Pittman has said on SportsCenter that this is his last job. I'm not sure I'd have told that, as Sonny Smith, the Auburn basketball coach, says from time to time. But again, he's done a tremendous job. And let's be honest, they really should have won that Auburn game also on that awful call when Bo Nix threw the ball behind him. The league is kind of kind of straighten that out, shall we say, as far as the rule is concerned, but sure didn't help Arkansas then. But look, what they have done, I think, has been extremely remarkable. They have a lot of confidence, and this is basically with Chad Morris's players and what they've been able to do to get those guys unified. And look, the Broyles Award winner right now, I don't think there's any use to wasting more time with this, is Barry Odom. The defensive coordinator for Arkansas, who was a coach in Missouri, has frankly done about as good a job defensively as I've seen. For instance, with what they've done so far, Grant Morgan, who's a walk-on, is among the nation's top tacklers at this point. They've got 13 takeaways in 4 games. They had 16 takeaways last year and 12. So that's progress, isn't it, Mark, to be able to see what they have done defensively. Hudson Clark, 3 picks versus Ole Miss. Now, he will be awarded a scholarship in January. That's amazing to think about that. And thank you for that Arkansas State, Appalachian State reminder for tomorrow night at 7:30. But still, I mean, the Hogs, at this point, they've allowed 11 sacks. They're 72 second in the nation in rushing. That they're not doing a whole lot there. I think Rakeem Boyd coming back is going to help them. But right now, I would say at this point, Arkansas is one of the better stories that we've had in the league, Mark, in quite a while.
It's been fun to watch, and the most entertaining game for me last weekend was watching them take on Ole Miss and watch all that bevy of turnovers. There are a few things in football more exciting than a pick six, and Arkansas gave us a couple, plus the hat trick as well. And Hunter Morgan playing out of his mind at linebacker, and Bumper Poole supposed to be back here pretty soon for an Arkansas team that is a whole lot of fun to watch. And again, then you got Ole Miss with Lane Kiffin, of course. They're only 1-3, but they're the most entertaining 1-3 team in the country as well, Brent.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Matt Corral, who was at Florida for a while before deciding to go to Ole Miss, has just been he's done an incredible job, frankly. Now what happened is teams now are or being able to zone them a little bit more. For instance, Alabama just went man-to-man, but now you're seeing a little bit more of that. But still, Corral's been tremendous. Elijah Moore has 42 catches already, and we're not even in November yet. So Elijah Moore, known obviously for his antics in the Mississippi State Ole Miss game in the Egg Bowl last year, but what a really good receiver that he is. Ely at running back, I've been really impressed with him at this time too. And they've got a fascinating game with Auburn. And you've got a situation where they can score on almost any given play. And gosh, when Lane Kiffin is able to get his own guys in there, but it's going to be incredible what they're going to be able to do. But I'm with you. Their defense is awful. Let's be honest about that. I mean, right now there's 77 teams playing, and their defensive stats, I mean, in rush defense, they're 75. Pass defense, they're 72. Total defense, they're 76. So pretty easy to see what area that recruiting be concentrating on in the offseason for the Rebels.
So we'll now get to the game and the two teams that obviously catch most of the attention in the conference, because these two have separated themselves. Florida will have something to say, but Bama's pretty much already won the SEC West because A&M looks like the second best team, and they dusted them off by 4 touchdowns. So what do you make of this Alabama-Georgia game that certainly for one half of football delivered everything we could possibly want out of these two teams? And then even deep into the third, early fourth quarter, Georgia was still right there despite all the miscues. But then, boom, they're down 34-24, and then they get a bad turnover, and then it's all said and done. And I hate the narratives that come out of these kind of games when the expectations are this high that one team choked. and then also when it gets laid at the feet of one particular player, and that's, of course, Stetson Bennett.
Well, look, Stetson Bennett got them to where they were going into the game, and Stetson Bennett played as well within his limitations, I think, as he could. Now, he had 7 tipped or batted passes in the game, but that brings up the point of what are they going to do now with this off week and then going into the Kentucky game at quarterback, and then obviously you got Florida coming up for basically what's going to decide probably the Eastern Division, unless Kentucky can grab in there and bolster Mark's pick with that. So at this point, I think what they're going to decide to do is how mobile that JT Daniels is going to be. Now, look, we don't know if we know JT Daniels is good. Well, we don't know if he can play that in a cowboy movie right now for Georgia until he gets on the field. So my understanding is what's going on there is he obviously had the ACL surgery at USC. He has got some stiffness in that knee, and they're hoping to get him more mobile. Certainly Todd Monken does not want him to be a statue out there, standing out there by himself in order to get hit. So I think that's a big situation that they've got to deal with. But Mark, that doesn't mean Stetson Bennett is not going to play anymore. Stetson Bennett, again, at this point has most experience on this team and has been the most effective. So you can't throw him out with the bathwater, shall we say. But I think one thing they've got to do if they play him, he doesn't need to be throwing 40 passes. They need to run the ball more. Mark, but people may not realize this, but they averaged nearly 5 yards a carry against Alabama. And Kendall Milton, Zamir White, Zeus, I thought they played well behind the offensive line. I think they will balance that if they play Alabama again in the SEC championship game, and we're not getting too far ahead of ourselves here. But I think if they would have had more balance in that game, that they would have probably stayed in the game a little bit longer. But the reality is right now, Alabama's got a quarterback in Mac Jones, who is from here in Jacksonville, the Bowl School, played for the late Corky Rogers, probably the greatest high school coach in Florida, state of Florida history. So he has really grown with that offense under Steve Sarkisian. Having Waddle and Smith as wide receivers and Mechie, and then obviously Najee Harris. Alabama defense certainly improved during that game. And just really kind of overwhelmed Georgia. They had the ball for nearly 12 of the 15 minutes in the fourth quarter to be able to salt the game away. Look, season over for Georgia. Georgia's like Florida. They've got everything in front of them. Florida does, even with the A&M loss. If they beat Georgia, and then obviously the same thing if Georgia beat Florida. So at the same time, it was a game of two heavyweights for a lot of that game. Enjoyed being able to be there mentally, even in the midst of it. It was strange to have 20,000 in Bryant-Denny when you're expecting 100,000, but they sound like 100,000 on a few occasions there. But great game between two of the best teams in the conference, who very well may be playing again at the end of the year.
All right, everyone, College Football Nation, we would love to make this a staple of your week. So we're here every Wednesday night at 8 o'clock Eastern time to talk SEC football. Just call it SEC Live, lock it in. Subscribe to the channel. You hit the bell for the notifications. That way you know when we're going live, but you can count on it every Wednesday night at 8 o'clock. And this guy I call in because he can go anywhere on the map in the Southeastern Conference and tell you a tale, tell you a story, give you some background, and really deliver regardless of the subject, the topic, or the team. So, Brent, we appreciate you stopping by again. It's Brent Baird, First Coast News and College Sports Today.
Mark, I appreciate it very much. And I'll leave you with this, that my favorite story of the week so far was Mark Stoops talking after the game when he said Eddie Grand, the offensive coordinator, he had on his mask. His glasses got fogged up. And Eddie called the wrong play and the wrong formation, and they lost yardage because of it. And as Stoops can only say, Now, we can chuckle about this now. It wasn't funny when it happened, but I thought, we take all this stuff for granted, don't we, Mark? But we probably have no idea what these coaches are dealing with every play in and out as they try to keep their mask on and keep their sanity at the same time. Mark, great to see you, brother. It's always
that's just the truth in life, Brent. Most of the funniest stories that we like to tell weren't so funny at the time.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes.
That's the core of comedic culture right there. All right, Brent, we appreciate you stopping by.
My pleasure, brother. Take care.
All right, everyone. It's SEC Live every Wednesday night, 8 o'clock Eastern time. Be right here. And you know that I will be. So our next live stream off the top of my head, when are we? Oh, if you hit the bell for the notifications, that's how you find out. Right here at Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. We'll see you next time.